Good afternoon. My name's Craig Byatt. I've been a sustainable architect for 17 years now. As a sustainable architect, it required a lot of patience and perseverance to understand what that actually means. When I finished uni, my final years at uni was understanding owner-builder technologies, coming into contact with permaculture and what that holistically means in bettering our lives and our planet. The university system was unsure of what this was. Was it architecture or not? And I was completely unsure of what that was, but I knew I was on a path to something pretty good. And it's only now that I realise that I've come full circle from those uni days into something that I now understand. I graduated from Newcastle Uni in '97 and have worked throughout Australia on many varied projects. Basically, yeah, the uni was tough, but researching my craft and how I want to develop my practice, how I want to learn to actually live myself has generated a huge inspiration to what I do as an architect. So it takes in so many variables, and you're getting a picture today of how many decisions, considerations you have to go through in order to procure a lifestyle that's right for you. There's compromises along the way, but essentially, if you stick to your guts and your truth, then you're going to actually make something real and sustainable. Throughout the years, has basically come to the conclusion that nothing can remain in isolation. We all need connection. And viewing that as in a holistic way in which I do my business and how I see architecture. The term holistic is basically ordering things or allowing things to thrive. And by thriving, I mean empowering. It's about, basically trying to flourish, prosper, realise your full potential, and be supported in that growth. You need people around you all the time to constantly generate your enthusiasm for what you do, what you're trying to achieve. And I view, a part of my role and the way that I want to live is helping that to be achieved. I'll just go through, I've got a couple of notes. So basically you can see on the screen that's going to be the start of, there's a couple of design principles. But before you even start trying to ascertain, where your house is going, if you're going to be actually building soon, how you're going to build, what are you going to use, all of those planning issues. You've probably seen 1,000 house plans out there, and some you like, some you don't, some basically could fit your model, but things could be shifted around. Get back to basics and try to understand who you are. It's simple. How do you want to live? It could be any decision you make along the way, you need to know truthfully what that means to you. So simple exercise is basically to write a story, do a half an hour exercise in writing a page of notes about anything. It could be a texture of a timber or a feel of concrete or how you wake in the morning. What is your perfect waking day? And basically, if your partner's not next to you, then you go and have a cold shower and realise and then realise the shower. What does it mean to have a cold shower? Did that just... Because my perfect average day would be... do you have a vision? So we've talked a lot about you need the vision to create a sustainable lifestyle. And it's the most important thing. You've got to remain true to yourself. What does your sanctuary feel like? How do you want to live, smell, look? How you move through your home during the course of the day? And how do you like to live season by season? A lot of people sort of, a great example is the Earthship. You're getting a constant temperature, you're getting a constant internal environment which thrives. And this is the best thing about this system, is that it's a holistic process and it enables things to be restorative, restores you, it produces, for you throughout the year without taking from the environment. And really, this is probably the best example of a house in self-sufficiency. And I think a house is the only thing that can be truly self-sufficient. and then Earthship has shown there's a way how. So with this little story, don't judge yourself, don't ask questions, don't even think about, where, what you've seen in a plan, what a builder's told you, just think about more how you feel. That's the basic essence into understanding yourself. Once you understand yourself, then you can ask the question, how? How do I achieve this? I want to live like this, how do I do it? And that's where you start surrounding yourself by the good people, Like engineering with Marty's job, it was essential, that he had a good connection both personally and also through the skills and knowledge. And through this process as well, you will gain knowledge. It won't be a sort of a battering down of, no, this can't be done. You start to question yourself, then you get stressed. Try and find, no, this is true, this is doable, find the right people to help you out. It brings, the main barrier, for all of this is fear. How do I do it? It's overwhelming. There's so many consistent thousands and thousands of decisions you have to make, and how do you do it in this, I suppose, the norm, in this society is basically you've got project home builders telling you this project home is affordable. You can have this now, you can have $2,000 in your pocket. The first home buyers grant will give you a home. It's affordable. But with the star ratings and everything, what they're building now is a timber frame esky. Like these plastic polystyrene walls which are rendered in a polymer as well. You're basically going to kill yourself. Nothing's talked about that because of the off-gassing. It's got nowhere to, it's got nowhere to breathe. It's going to leach into your house. It's going to kill people, and they'll realise that it's like Blueboard, like all of these things. It takes 10 years and a life cycle of time to actually realise this is toxic. But as we know, if you deal with natural materials, you deal with natural systems well, it's going to make you thrive. But, as you've felt, Marty, the energy system does not compute this. It hasn't got the capacity. The software doesn't compute mud bricks. How do you ventilate? How you actually operate. It's in isolation. And also, the companies that produce these materials are basically, it's a cheap build because everyone wants affordable housing. And this is cheap. Just stick plastic on the outside of plantation pine and then line it with gyprock. And basically that's it to get through the system. So these houses achieving 6 stars with plastic wrapped, bubble wrap, are the same house energy rating as Marty's Earthship, and it's crazy. So it doesn't have to be a stress, but I suppose, my role as an architect, is basically trying to factor in and consider, time and money is one of those essential things you need to think about. It doesn't have to be a barrier. You just have to live within your means, like all of us have to do. You make it work for you. So you have to ascertain, what time frame you need to do it in, what reasons for doing this and how much money you have to spend. What is the best system for you? Unless you want to spend years gaining the knowledge and to bring that into your vision, into your knowledge base, you need to rely on people to get you by. I, in my job, rely on structural engineers, because I need to know holistically how the whole house goes together. But I don't know all the intricate little bits. I've got a big vision, I know how to detail and everything, but sometimes you need experience where it counts, and these are the guys that will help you get an economical system happening. It'll meet my vision, it'll meet my client's vision, it'll meet everyone's needs. And I think that's the most important thing. Ask for help on how to achieve what you want to achieve. There's the management process, stems into, how do you do this holistically as well? Bringing these people together. And basically, you need to get on the right side of bureaucracy because they're just going to cause a pain in your ass, So how do you do that? Is it actually like you let them know certain things about what you're doing, you don't give them the whole picture, but basically you're talking about your vision. Again, this is what I want to achieve. If they're not coming on the board with that vision, then ask them why. What is it you're not seeing? So start the communication. It's not a fight, and all of my jobs, I've basically tried to negotiate, and there is a little compromises here or there, but wholesalely, everything that I've wanted to achieve gets through the bureaucracy and the process to get buildings built. Ensuring, town planning understands your intentions, keeping your budget on track and limiting unforeseen costs. That's a huge one because you get hit so many times. Project home builders or anyone, dealing with building, there's always variations on site, and how do you limit those? How do you actually foresee problems before they actually arise? This is all the thinking that involves with the knowledge and the people that you surround yourself with. It is a very big stressful thing should you be hit with the variation. If you're choosing that path down a regular building and a regular builder to do your job, be very, just be very conscious that you need to know what you're talking about, have the detailing there, the documents, and to ensure none of this happens. And staying true to your desires. It's all about finding creative solutions, and sometimes, architects, we have creative vision, and sometimes we get little things wrong, but sometimes we have a pot of gold, in everything that we do, because we try and link it into other ways in which other things work within the whole process of building your house. A good example would be, an overcrowded school came to an architect and said, listen, we've got a huge problem with students just everywhere. When the bell rings, the corridors are flooded with kids. We can't move, kids from one area to the other. And they're always late for class. What do we do? And in their mind, they're thinking, well, we're going to have to come up with, with X million dollars to try and renovate the place and, do all this, building works. But the architect sort of just sat down and just said, well, why don't you just spend, $50, $100 and get a couple of bells and time the bells at a specific time when the class ends. Therefore, the year 4s are going out 5 minutes before the year 5s. The overcrowding is solved. So it's safe for them, and then they can start thinking about funding for the next problem. So, it's about finding solutions, and they don't have to cost you money. Architects have got this perception that you need a lot of money to have an architectural home, and I don't agree. I'm trying to sort of bring that back to basics and saying what's the right decision, where can you save your money? Because housing affordability is just going nuts at the moment, and it's just the standard you get for what's affordable is killing you. So what's another way? So basically it comes into, design principles. Is it efficient, like warm in winter, cool in summer? So in this climate, we've got a varying temperature degrees. The stable temperature that like you've seen, that the mounded earth gives you, the thermal mass is just vital to allow your building to be warm in winter, cool in summer. That's the basic principle. Passive solar design, face it north, ventilation, extracting cool air and venting it out the top, allowing that hot air to suck the cold out. Cyclic, the construction and materials, is this build going to be based on recycled materials? What can you utilise? What are you walking around and seeing that could be utilised as a resource? All of these things come into play. How am I going to actually construct this that's going to be within my means? There's standard ways, or is there a better way? Is it safe, non-toxic? So generally the rule is if it's natural, it's non-toxic, unless you have allergies or whatever. That's a simple rule. Smart, the adaptive, restorative, clever design, simplicity, functionality and sexy. That's a smart building. That's going to give you joy. It's going to give you a sustainable house. Durable, will it age gracefully? So the maintenance on the place. Will it age gracefully? You're aging. How about the house ages with you? All the little nuances that happen in the house, like the cracks, the where you're walking mostly gets trodden into the ground. All of those is language about how you're using your house. And I think if you're choosing the right materials in the way that they're meant to be used, then you're going to get a building that's going to last and last and last. Achievable, affordability and time. That's a question for you guys. What's your budget? How long have you got? They are simple questions you could nail right now, and then you need the knowledge to come in and say, well, how is this achieved? Don't sort of think about, well, I need to be a bit flexible on this and add another 100 grand to, and it's going to stress you out. Think backwards a little bit. And do you personally love it? Does it feel like a sanctuary? Is it an expression of you? And does it enable you and your environment to thrive? Does it support you or your family or community? And I think if they're the principles that govern every decision you make along the way, I think you're in with a very good little home. So I'm going to start with, this is going to be pictures. This is going to be a bit of house porn, and I started with a bathtub. It's lovely, it's a bath. And, I'm wondering, my first inkling is that's gorgeous, it's got a sea view, I want to be in that bath. And then you think, well, where's the water come from? How am I going to drain the thing? It's on wheels, does it fly? Does it, is this a reinvention of what a bathtub does, So architects love this stuff because it questions what a bathtub is, but essentially for me it's a practical nightmare. Although it'd be good once, I'd guarantee you, draining that thing and filling it up again and again would be a nightmare. So this is a little place in the US. I think it's basically, I'm going into small housing here because I think, as what's been mentioned, is the less space you have, the less it'll cost. And basically the less it'll cost to run, less to maintain. You can afford it now and you can get quality. You can afford those little bits and pieces of quality in there that's going to allow it to age gracefully. So, external claddings, double glazing, sheet metals are actually pretty good, and the timber, choose a timber on the external facade that's going to weather gracefully. You don't have to paint it. So this house is virtually above cleaning the glass once in a while, is virtually maintenance free. But then on the other side, I can't picture myself really dining in this space, like in this climate. It doesn't suit our climate. So every picture that you look at, there is bits that I would absolutely adore, but there is bits that just wouldn't suit this climate. So always come back to where you live, how you live season to season. Because that dining table in winter, you just wouldn't go out there at all, really. You can't dry clothes, you wouldn't have a barbecue, the seats are filled with water, you'd be inside all the time. So really. And this is the internal of the place. So they've just provided a white sort of, canvas to your filling. And really, it's the compact spaces that mean so much to when you think, how much can I afford? Because how small can you go? How much money have you got, to spend on good quality? But get rid of all the fluff around that, What is the smallest space you can live in? Another house, timber boarding as well. Timber's great. It's a matter of, I use always reclaimed and salvaged timber in my jobs. So, this one is obviously, a multi-million-dollar job for $5,000 a square metre, but it looks brilliant. Hasn't got eaves, once again, but just the form of it and the way that the materials work together, I think is quite beautiful. Can that be adapted in a way that suits our climate? And plus, again, maintenance. It's good. This is sort of a job. I think it's a community centre. But the iron on the outside, you'll never have to touch that in your life. It can be recycled once it's past its life as a building. It'll never corrode away. It oxidises, therefore protects it. And I think it just gives a nice sort of aesthetic. And it's a real Australian aesthetic as well. And then you get the warmth of the timbers and you get the concrete floor and the timber. I think just the feeling of space that this creates is quite beautiful. And then speaking of small home, just being plonked in the middle of nowhere, is this sustainable? I think it's great that it's being small, it's reducing your footprint and everything, but really, could you live in that? It's beautiful. And it's in the middle of nowhere. But then the next shot, this is designed as a little add-on, that this is only one part. And then all of a sudden you add on a bit, you've got an outdoor kitchen, you put a deck on it and it gives it a sense of place. The timbers on the outside, I think that's iron cladding again, or it might be timber as well. And then you get the sort of textures and vibrancy from the outside where you've got the durable skin. Then you're moving internally to the timbers, then you've got the play inside, that gives you life. This is a house in Japan in a really urban setting. So it's copper on the outside, then glazing with greenhouse. Basically, you know, the urban setting is very important to understand that smaller is better, because we've got infill sites in Melbourne that have just been underutilised. So how do you work with that, with a growing population moving right out into the burbs? I think small housing will bring it back into the city. It'll reclaim land. It'll also increase density. And because of its box form, it's going to actually fit in a lot of housing if we learn to sort of question how much space we actually need. So you can see in the urban dwelling, it fits beautifully into this scene. And there's the male Mary Poppins on the roof wanting to climb out. This is by the sea as well. So this box, it's shut down, you know, when it's probably a holiday house, but I assume that the timber they've used just left to go grey. It'll survive all the coastal conditions, but then it's able to be opened up with those big doors. It becomes and internally, like the outer skin is very cold, but warm, and then internally you get your warmth. Clever storage solutions, you know, how small can you go? That's a little kitchen and then a little shower nook. This is beautiful. This reminds me of just a spiritual place, but the use of timber once again. And then storage solutions, use of timber, right orientation. This is a Japanese type inspired thing, concrete floors, polished, you know, there's a lot of detail in that, but it gives a quality and a language that actually speaks that it looks handmade, yet the detailing is so beautiful. And then kitchen, you know, simple things like that. Think about, you know, how do you use a kitchen? Like, I think it's gold that you've got these hanging pots. I love that, you know, the fact that you work in the kitchen and you're washing your dishes and you're just hanging them up. There's no need for drying or anything like that. They're just hanging there to be used again and drip dry. This one, you know, outdoor, indoor spaces. You know, how do you make use of what you've got on site? Basically creating, you know, a shelter and a space for you to come outside, because if you're thinking small, your house is small, so you want to get outside. So where's that internal outdoor space happening? And then we get on to containers. And this dude put his 2 containers like this in his apartment for some reason. And I don't know why he would use this, really. He's got a folding bed. The apartment's huge. Is it a statement? What's he trying to do? I don't know. But then you get a sense of place and a sanctuary. So this is a shipping container here. They just remodelled it, reclad bits and pieces just to create that sense of entry and space. And this one, they've actually pulled out all the sides here of this container and made these little usable nooks. So when it's transported, it's pushed together. And I think the advantage of having a drop-in container type house is you getting a solid structural base in which to work, and then every bit that you're adding to that is just like building cupboards, like it's joinery, it's Lego. But the main thing is you get out of the ground and you've got your structure there, true to build off. This is another idea, you know, just the flexibility of space. Heaps of storage, kitchen, you've got this little bed here that pops out when it's not raining. They've even got a tarp that comes out over the doors so you can keep it open. But just the use of plywoods, drop in as well. It's just on 4 stumps in the corners because the container can span this. This shuts up. This is a little holiday house as well. And the shower looks beautiful. Basically, it's just a wet room that just gets wet. It's got views to outside. And these ones as well, just adaptation of containers, you know, what you can do. The sod roof, you saw one down near the markets in CERES today. The fridge, they've got a garden on top just to keep it cool. That's good thermal mass for your roof and insulation. But, you know, the container traditionally is a small space internally. So what the idea is you insulate the outside, you know, as much as you can, and the variety of materials you can use for that is you know, immense. But where's the thermal mass? So, you know, that you can get a sod roof here. Can it be built in to the actual hillside as that structural base? This one was in Queensland as well, just recladding the outside of a container, just getting, you know, a bit of interest, I suppose. I don't know how practical this is. Maybe this is used for growing vines, you know, is it a possibility to get green walls on these things? It's a possibility, but in terms of community development, you know, is this another solution for that problem of housing affordability for the people in need, homelessness, you know? And then that's just a prototype that I'm developing as well. So that's me. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Has anyone got any questions for Craig for the 5 minutes?
One thing I was wondering is why have all buildings taken away their eaves and verandas, which tend to be a great thing from the past?
Yeah. Essentially cost. So basically what they're saying is you don't need shading on your glazing because you can put a film on it. So therefore if we take away that strip of eaves, we don't have to line the eaves. We don't have to spend money on that. We don't have to spend money on an extra $4.50 long rafter. You know, it's cost. And it's...
It makes an amazing difference to the warmth and coolness of the building.
Totally.
It does have the eaves and...
Well, this is basically the first rate they're allowed to do it because first rate says that film is enough for you to pass the stars. Simple, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the ship containers. They have a Christchurch, whole town, where they have the earthquake. It's all containers now, like all the shops and
Yeah.
stores
And
good. I like the idea of those. It's like amazing.
it's great for that immediate sort of disaster relief. It does look temporary, and it is temporary, but can it be a permanent thing? But in terms of, you know, it is transportable. So, you know, basically if council says, well, you can't have your shipping container there, council's pretty receptive to the aesthetics if you sort of clad it and everything, but basically you can say it's a temporary dwelling, you know, and they'll probably give you a permit where you can only have it for 2 years and then you reapply and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's great for pop-up shops. I've seen them on train tracks, cafes in the city have done it a lot, you know, I think it's just...
Reminds me of something like old school, because I've seen it like in high school, I think.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of came back to my head.
Yeah.
Back.
I think the main thing is getting them cool in summer, warm in winter. How do you do that? Yeah, insulation basically with a container. Yeah, there's no thermal mass, so where do you get the thermal mass from? But essentially it's basically adding to the outside. Like I've got various systems in which basically you can have a straw bale system which you're plugging onto the outside, which is going to insulate the inside. And then on the inside you're basically lining the container itself, saving a little bit of room. But if you're adding a container on a container, this is the thing, you can move them in any direction you want and any combinations. But could you possibly have a rammed earth mud brick blockwork wall on this southern wall? The sun's going to come straight in and heat that wall. It's insulated from the outside air. They can take a ton, you know, they're meant to carry goods and cargo across the world. So, and they're strong. So.
Can you do like the Earthship sense where instead of using your tires anymore, you just pop it into the...
This is where, yeah, I'll have to talk to a structural engineer. Totally. The earth burn that we've been talking about all day is the thing that gives the house, you know, its important thermal properties. Yeah. So if that's basically a way, then yeah, it's definitely viable. Yeah.
Just a question, Craig, about the cost comparison. So, say for something like that compared to, I think I heard this afternoon it was around 2,000 square metre. Was that right?
$10,000 a square metre is what Mike Reynolds quotes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what's your cost?
Well,
comparative?
yeah, like a shipping container, like a 20-foot container costs about $2,000 to buy. A 40-foot container costs about $2,000 to buy. I don't know why they're the same price. But for about $3.5 you get your structure and you get out of the ground. So $3.5 you've got a platform, it's waterproof, and then you're able to store stuff in there should you be using reclaimed materials until you're ready to actually renovate. So if you base it on that, then anything's up to you. You know, basically, if you just want to line the internals for another $500, you know, your add-ons is how much you've got to spend. So For 15 grand, you could probably get a container house, you know, with a rudimentary kitchen, a wet area, and basically you just furnish it out, you know, but it will be insulated, it will have some benefit, you know, thermally. So roughly, you know, I suppose $1,000 a square metre, and then if you want to add to that, then it works up to about 2. It just depends on the quality and the way you want to do it. The labour is important. So, you know, this sort of system as well works with a community build. You know, it's just joinery. You're just putting together bits of timber and reclaiming materials into what form you want. So I can't see why it can't be done for cheap.